I didn't realize how much truths that I had built my life upon and from God's Word or that were shared with me, how much they would make a difference in this season of my life. And such is the case tonight. If you'll go to Romans chapter 12 and verse number 1, and I truly set out to preach this to help several people in the auditorium because they had asked a question and about failure in life. And Pastor, has my life, if it's not measured up to what God had in mind, am I a failure? And it was hard to explain to them in just a short 5-minute conversation. No, not at all. They said, well, how does God look at this? All of us have times that we think to ourselves, if I would have took that fork in the road, would I have ended up there? Maybe I should have took that fork in the road. Maybe if I hadn't made these decisions, maybe if I had done something a little bit different. It is easy to feel like that whatever is happening in our lives today is punishment for a bad decision of yesteryear. It is easy to look in the rearview mirror of life and think to yourself, man, is this turning out this way because I made a misstep someplace back yonder? Parents will know exactly what I'm talking about. Parents of grown children will know exactly what I'm talking about. We think to ourselves when our grown children make decisions, man, sometimes you'll think to yourself when your teenagers make decisions, I don't know. You'll think to yourself sometimes when the marriage hits a rocky point that what if I would have just made that other? When I was a young man, somebody shared with me the overwhelming truth, and I've preached from this text many a times, but I'm going to get a little bit more personal tonight in preaching it because it now has a different light in recent days of my world. Romans chapter 12 and verse 1, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And right now I'm regretting whoever made that dumb decision and put that dumb sign on the outside of this auditorium, no food or drink in the auditorium. Right now I am second guessing that kind of decision. And so how many are second guessing that kind of decision yourself? Miss Kelly, I thought you loved every decision I made. And do you have water in your purse right now? Okay, good girl. And so let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for this night, and I thank you for all that you've done in my heart and in my mind and in my spirit. And Lord, I thank you for godly teachers and godly pastors and godly parents. I thank you for, at that time in my life, for the aged men in the church that saw that I was struggling, and that, Lord, they kind of helped me. And Lord, I truly believe that all of us sometimes listen too much to the opinion of this world rather than to the truth of your word. And yet, Lord, help us tonight as we look. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Wow. Ask and ye shall receive. I can drink this, though, because it's Sam's purified water. So this is holy water, and I can just see what's going to happen now. Everybody's going to go out and buy purified water, and when I say no drink in the auditorium, and you know it has not been drunk from, how many know what I'm talking about? You listen for the click. Are y'all that way? And if I don't hear why am I talking to y'all this way? All right, Romans chapter 12. Sometimes preachers and pastors have placed an unfair burden upon the shoulders of the believer that it is your responsibility not to miss the will of God. There are times when you can walk away with this intense anxiety that if I miss it, I will forever live an inferior Christian life. When I was 17 years of age, I decided to stop living for the world, the flesh, and the devil. And I decided when I was 17 to take my life and to give it to the Lord. Romans 12:1 was very important to me. Give your bodies a living sacrifice. The beginning of Romans chapter 12 and verse number 2, the beginning of verse number 2 was very important to me. But my spiritual psyche, if that's what you want to call it, was fooled with one day when we went to a youth rally in Garland, Texas, and the speaker for the evening stood up, and he was preaching from this passage, and he divided the will of God into three levels. There was the perfect, there was the acceptable, and there was the good. He then equated this to a train station. He had all of us, we were sitting there, and he said, young people, it's very important you find the will of God. I do agree with that. He said, young people, but it's like a train station. If you show up and you are not on time, and if you misstep in your life, then you will miss the perfect will of God. But hang around this train station. Because although you miss the perfect will of God, just hang out, because then not too much longer, the acceptable will train will come through. Get on that. And if you mess up there, just keep hanging out at the station, and you then will find the good. And then he said this. He said, at least you can end your days as a saved person in the good. I have to be honest with you, he did not mean to do the damage that he did for me, but that threw me for a loop. And I thought to myself, I've never been nominal. I've never wanted to be normal. I've never wanted to be somebody that just lived this subpar life. Coach, I didn't like riding the bench because I thought I was better than the rest of those guys in the starting five. That's just me. And how many times would Coach look at me and say, no, Bob, you're our sixth man off the bench. And I was like, I don't want to be sixth man off the bench. I want to get in the game from the very start. Do you not know how good I am? And Coach would say, with that kind of attitude, you're not making the starting five. So it's always been in me that I don't want to be second rate. I don't want to be inferior. And I know how much I messed up. I know how many times I made the wrong decision when I was a teenager living for the flesh and the world and the devil. And I knew I missed it, I blew it, and that's the reason why I had to get right with the Lord. And then panic set in to where I was like, if I miss it the first time around, Bob, you're going to miss it the second time. Because if you weren't that smart to get it right here, then Bob, you're not that smart to get it right over here. And I was living in this pressure that I was undue. I should never have put the pressure on myself. And that night, I went on a journey to set myself free. And on that night, I went into a valley in my spirit that I should never have gone into. I started getting scared. I started holding back. If it had not been for an elderly man in our church, and that was anybody 57 or above, the elderly generation of believers. And that's because I'm 56. And don't whistle at something like that. When you say you're 95, then you whistle, all right? The truth is this, and please listen to this. The will of God is not geographical. The will of God is behavioral. Set yourself free tonight. Because there are many people that would be listening to me right now that you probably think to yourself, my days of perfect and my days of acceptable are gone. I must relegate my life to live into the suburbs of I'll just have to settle for doing the good, to do the best I can. I want you to go to Ephesians chapter 2, if you will, in verse number 2, and we're going to look at 2 verses here tonight. And although I've preached this truth before, I think it's timely because this truth pulled me through a lot of dark days this past week. In Ephesians chapter 2, it says this, wherein in times past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Ephesians 2:2. Ephesians 2:3. Among whom also we all had our conversation in times past. That conversation does not mean yak yak or talk talk. It means walk walk. It's how you live. We all had our lifestyle or our conversation in times past. Look at this. In the lust of our flesh. Look at this phrase. Fulfilling the desires of the flesh. That word will in Romans chapter 12 and verse number 2, it's only found 2 other places in 2 other English words. The word will, you can find it's replete throughout the scriptures, but when it comes to the surface to help us understand, it simply means this, desire. That's all that means. And when God says in Romans chapter 12 and verse number 2 that there is the good, the perfect, the acceptable, and the good will of God, then what it's saying is this will of God is the desire of God. God has a desire for his children to do. God has a desire. And we were living in times past, before you got saved, before you decided to turn your life over to the Lord, you would fulfill the desires of the flesh and of the mind. Look at it there in verse number 3. Fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind. Your mind would conceive it. Your flesh would carry it out. And this is where we got ourselves in trouble. Anybody here that has nights you wish you could take back, they are only a result of the fact that your mind desired and your flesh carried out the desires. And we can all testify that maybe there were seasons in our life to where we simply did what felt good. We simply did what pleased us. We simply did what gave us a high. And God says this is that same word that is found in Romans chapter 12 in verse number 2. The will of God. That will is nothing more than the same word found here in Ephesians 2:3, desires. Go to Revelation chapter 4 and verse 11. Let's look at the second time this is found. And tonight, I want to set you free in your Christianity because you've got a whole lot of living to do. I have a whole lot of living to do. And there's a whole lot, can I just say it this way? There's a whole lot of tough times coming down your path. Whether you like it or not, it rains on the just and the unjust alike. RG had a special condition, and I will tell you there are probably 10 other families, 9 other families that have a child with the same condition, and that condition will cost those children their lives. But I don't know how those parents are going to make it if they do not know the Lord. Because knowing the Lord, but more than just knowing the Lord, am I living my life to please the Lord each and every day? Revelation chapter 4 and verse 11, thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things. Look at it. And for thy what, please? Pleasure They are and what? Were created. You were not created for your pleasure. You were not created to please your mind. You were not created to please your flesh. You were not created to please your goals. You were not created to please your path or your career. You were created to please the Lord Jesus Christ. Because only one person is worthy. Look what it says there. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive what? Glory and what? Honor and power. From your life should come glory, honor, and power back to the Lord Jesus Christ. That glory, that honor, and that power cannot be used for your pocketbook. It cannot be used for your career ladder. It must be used for His glory, His honor, and His power. This is why we were created. These are the only two times that this is found in the Bible in other English words. The will of God, that ye may prove that you would be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The battle you face right now in your worthiness and where you're at in your Christian life is nothing more than a battle in your mind. And you must fight the battle in your mind to where in your mind you do not make yourself a second-class citizen, and in your mind you do not make yourself somebody that's missed it and now you have to live with a subpar life. It's not how God works. You're His child. The word will simply means desires. That's what it does in the flesh. Pleasure, that's what it does for the Lord. And I want to preach on this subject, PTL. Normally it stands for praise the Lord, please the Lord. That's it. That's it. You say, Pastor, what is the purpose of it all? The purpose of it all is this, that you were created not for your pleasure, but to please the Lord. And in pleasing the Lord, these are the stepping stones to finding what God has for you. Or could I put it this way? Pleasing the Lord is what's going to take away the guilt. When tough times come your way. And you in your mind are going to have to say, I am not a second-class citizen because I should have took that path or I should have took that path. You just simply wake up every day. Go to 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse number 1. And I want to arm you with some scriptures and then we're going back to Romans chapter 12. 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse number 1. I said PTL, some of you went back to Jim and Tammy Baker and you're like, praise the Lord. I'm sitting here going, I know that's what Bobby Summerford was doing and the Jim and Tammy show. And so, never mind, I got to stop. How many have no idea what I just said? Children. All right, so look at 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse number 1. For as much then, as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same what, please? Mind. Do you see that? Arm yourself with the same what? Mind. For he that suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the what? Will of God. Did you see that? This is the end. The end is not for you to please your flesh, but the end is for you to please the will of God. Or could I say it this way? To will yourself to please God. Every day you wake up, you're going to have to exercise that will that God gave you, the same will that you exercise to trust Him. You simply wake up every day and say, I am exercising my will to step out and please the Lord. The only decision you have to make is not the decision between right and wrong and between wise and unwise. The decision is this: will this please the Lord? And if this step does not please the Lord, then we do not take this step. And if this step pleases the Lord, then we take this step. And if every day, every believer would just wake up and say, I am just going to please the Lord. And in pleasing the Lord, then whatever circumstance you're in, then you can confidently say, I simply have lived my life to try to please the Lord. And then whatever difficulties come along in life, I do not live with regret, and I do not live with this pressure. I was living under such immense pressure to always do everything right and to always do everything perfect. Because if the timing wasn't right, and if I didn't do this just right, I'm going to miss the train station. If I miss the train station, I'm going to have to hang out with a bunch of losers for the next train. If I miss that one by going to the vending machine and getting Snickers and Diet Coke, I then am going to live with this third-class set of Christians. And I was living under this pressure. I was a slave to the uncertainty of the proverbial question, am I in the perfect will of God? Have I found the perfect will of God? The will of God is nothing more than what God wants for my life. The will of God is not geographical. The will of God is behavioral. And when you're put in a position in life, all you have to ask yourself is this: does this please the Lord? Am I pleasing the Lord? Because if this step does not please the Lord, then I will not take this step. And if this step pleases the Lord, I will take this step. You see, it's not rocket science tonight, and you don't have to be a genius in the Christian realm of theology. All you have to know is this: does this please the Lord? And in pleasing the Lord today, and pleasing the Lord tomorrow, and pleasing the Lord the next week, and then pleasing the Lord this week, and then pleasing the Lord next month, and the next year, if I live my life pleasing the Lord, it is a pathway that will take me exactly to where God wants me to be, and God has been good to you. Because He's given you a thing called mercy. God's in control. God's in control. And if that pulpit's where I need to be, and I step out and as a junior high and say, I just want to please the Lord. And then I got to about my sophomore year and said, now I'm going to please the flesh. And I got to my junior year and I said, now I'm going to please the world. And now I'm just going to please every desire that I have. If that's where God wants to get me to, then the moment that I said, after 2 years of not pleasing the Lord, the moment I said, I'm going to please the Lord, guess where my path started leading me? My path started leading me back to where I needed to be, because God knew if you just please me when you get off the beaten path, then you pleasing me will put you back on the path to get where I have always wanted you to be. And it's not geographical. It's behavioral. Because what is the difference between you being in the right place, not being the right you? You see, here's what we think. If I can just get to the right place, I can be the right person. The place has never made the person. You don't turn into a car by going into a garage. You don't turn into a golfer by having the outfit. You're not a ball player because you have the headband. You don't run faster because you have brand new shoes. You don't jump higher because you have cushioned socks and those brand new shoes. And I think there's a lot of pressure going on to where we think to ourselves, I missed it, I have forfeited it. And I would just simply tell you this: just please the Lord. Transform your mind. Stop thinking in terms of first, second, and third, and think in terms of the will of God is behavioral. There are people who have arrived at the right place and then stopped doing the right thing, and they made the right place a bad place because they stopped pleasing the Lord. I've seen a lot of couples, and I'm just going to get a little bit personal right now. I've seen a lot of couples that decided we're going to please the Lord. We're just going to please the Lord. And then God takes a couple and brings them together because they're just pleasing the Lord and they just want to please the Lord. And then when they get to the right place that they think, and I've won the prize, I've gone home with the good thing. And guess what they stop doing? They stop pleasing the Lord. And they start pleasing their flesh. And they start pleasing their mind. And then this wife over here that trusted that guy back there or that man back here that trusted that woman back there would be somebody that would please the Lord for the rest of their life because that's the promise that was given. That's why you can never arrive in the Christian life. There is no arriving. There is just simply pleasing the Lord. And when you set out to please the Lord, I was a slave to the uncertainty. I was constantly searching for those couple of months. I was at the mercy of the next. I was at the mercy of whatever walked through that door in my life, and then I got scared. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's not it. But I had to transform my mind and examine God's will or desire for my life. And I simply cut the ties and I said, I'm just going to please the Lord. And when I please the Lord, then I shed the daunting questions. Is Longview where I need to be? Should I have gone someplace else? Is Kelly really the one that I should have married? Or should I have married somebody else? I'm waiting for you to answer that question. You're hurting me right now because you get yourself into the middle of a tough marriage and you'll start second guessing yourself. You get yourself at your job and you'll start second guessing yourself when the only thing you need to answer is this: am I pleasing the Lord? Should I be pastoring? Should I go into evangelism? Should I go to the mission field? Should I go to corporate? And I set myself free where other people are always second-guessing the train station and always second-guessing the trains and looking at the train schedule and looking at other people the same age at the same stage and going, well, maybe I should have hooked on that track. I will tell you that the best thing ever happened in my Christian life is when I just woke up every day and said this: I am just going to please the Lord. And when I realized that I'm just going to please the Lord, then all of the sudden, this pathetic attitude that I carried in my life, to where I was always jealous of other people who got to, and this uncertainty completely went away. And now I can live that life that simply says this: Bob, every day you wake up, you just simply decide to please the Lord. And in pleasing the Lord, your path has already been ordered. Because what does the book say? The steps of a good man are what, please? Ordered. Listen to what that means. Not only ordered, but they're put in order. God knows the next stone you're to step on. Stop looking at this life as something you've got to manufacture. You've got to come up with whatever needs to be. You just simply wake up and say this: does this please the Lord? And if this pleases the Lord, then this is the step I'm going to take. If I could get a little bit maybe down into the weeds, if that music doesn't please the Lord, then I'm not going to listen to that music. If that entertainment doesn't please the Lord, then I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to view that entertainment. If that association doesn't please the Lord, then I'm not going to do that association. If that behavior doesn't please the Lord, then I'm not going to do that behavior. And it is those many steps every day and every couple of hours in your life that you simply have to answer one question: does this please the Lord? And if this doesn't please the Lord, then I will not take this step. And you're going to have to let people in your life tell you when it doesn't please the Lord. I would like to sing the praises for my wife because she told me at this point I had to. My father was in Memphis, Tennessee, and my father's back went out, and he was in the hotel room, and we were at Grandma's or at Uncle Paul's in West Memphis. My dad's in Memphis, and I get this call. And for whatever reason, we just happened to be in town. I can't remember why we were in town. And my dad is flat on his back, and his back went out. He called. They had to break into the room. My Uncle Jerry showed up. My cousin showed up, and we're trying to figure out what do we do with this man, right? And I said, just throw the sheet up and go out and lock the door. No, take his wallet first. And so I was trying, what do I do with this man? And so it had been a long couple of days, and there was a restaurant across the street. And I said, I'm going to run across the street, and I'm just going to get something to eat. Well, I had walked in. Y'all straighten up your halos. I'm going to say that ahead of time so you don't judge me. But we didn't have cell phones back then, and so I went across the street. I'm standing there, and it was at a bar with a restaurant. And I had ordered a sandwich from the bar. And I'm standing back, and I'm standing. Y'all straighten up your halo. I just felt the ooh go across. All right. My dear wife stepped into the back of that restaurant. And she looked at me and she said, Bob, I don't think the Lord would be pleased with where you're at right now. Alan, I told you, straighten up your halo, man. You're making me feel bad. And I looked at her and I said, let me tell you something, woman. In the words of our son yet to be born, I'm a man. I said, they got the best food in town. Everybody sees I'm not drinking a beer. Y'all don't judge me. But all my wife had to say was, I don't think the Lord is pleased. And I turned around and I said, come on. And we walked out. Now, before you judge me, all of us take a step. And we stand there in our self-righteousness. And we stand there with eternal security, blood washed, saved, coming in, going out. The devil can't touch me. But are you pleasing the Lord? Because if you go to Revelation chapter 4, is he getting the honor for where you're at? Is he getting the glory for what you're doing? And is there power in what you have surrounded yourself by? You see, you and I have no decisions to make except one. What pleases the Lord? Because here's why. You got a lot of life to live. Listen, young people, and we have a lot of young people in this room. Stop living by what pleases your flesh and what pleases your mind and pleases your future. Live by what pleases the Lord. PTL. Please the Lord. Because here's why. If you go back to Romans chapter 12 and verse number 2, the renewing of your mind and the transforming of your mind is that when you simply please the Lord, this is the will of God. It's not geographical, it's behavioral. When you just start pleasing the Lord, then you will start proving to yourself that what pleases the Lord, listen to this, is three things to you. Because these three things in Romans chapter 12 are not trains at a train station. They are not, I missed this, so I got to go to this, and I missed this, and I got to go to this. My brother and I and the family, I'm going to tell on them right now because I made this rookie mistake in flying them coming down here. Scott flew first class. I'm telling on him. He put Jenny back in business class or back there in economy. Yeah, I know. Drop your jaw and everybody say, bad Scott. And I know that's not a good move for marriage. You want to know how I know? It's because I, at times, have put Kelly back there, way back there. The last time we flew together, RG and Kelly are in the first class, and they're getting served all this kind of stuff. I am behind them in back here to where you get nothing. You sit like this, right? And then you're like, I can't move. Can you feed me my peanuts? And so RG and Kelly are sitting right here, and I can hear the china coming. I can smell the food coming. So I stick my hand through between the seats, and I'm like to RG, give me RG. RG, no, bad Bob. And so I put my hand back, and then RG would look back through there, and I could just see that nose with those teeth that aren't there. And he can't even eat what they put on his plate, and he'd go, oh. But it's not first class, this, and then you got to sit back by the latrine. Right, Bobby? And you got to sit all the way back by the latrine. This is not what it is. If you'll look here, please, when you and I prove and we convince ourselves, we prove, we now settle it, I'm just going to please the Lord. Then you are prepared for pleasing the Lord, whatever comes your way in pleasing the Lord. Pleasing the Lord. Could I just say this, please? And I did not realize this until this past week. Pleasing the Lord is the safety net so you don't get yourself into a mode of thinking that you should not be in. Pleasing the Lord and just say, I'm going to please the Lord. That's all I'm going to do is pleasing the Lord, because you let tragedy happen in your life, and you all of a sudden will go places in your thinking that my God's punishing me, my God's against me. What did I do? Did he do this to me? And if you simply please the Lord, then your outlook, your mind, you arm yourself, like we read in this, you arm yourself with this amazing thought process that says this: I'm just going to please you. And then whatever comes my way while pleasing you will be three things in my life. And look at the adjectives, please. It will be perfect. Perfect? Do you know what perfect means? Perfect does not mean without error. Perfect simply means mature. That I will be mature. With everything that comes to my life, if I just say, Lord, I'm going to please you, and I'm just going to step out, and I am just going to please you. Brother Mark has been a great inspiration to RG, and Mark, I just want to say thank you for your love for RG. And I can't say, and I'm not anything other than just a heartfelt love. It just is. It just is. But one day, Brother Mark and I were having a conversation about something, and he said to me in the midst, and Brother Mark, I didn't ask you for the permission, I won't go into great detail, but in essence what he was saying was, I don't think this would please the Lord. 100 decisions are in front of me, but I just don't think this one would be pleasing to the Lord. Listen, if everybody here would just please the Lord, then when life comes your way, in pleasing the Lord, it's a safety net to where now you can relax and say this: I'm here right now because I just simply knew this would please the Lord. And whatever I'm going through right now, it will mature me. Listen, those who set out to please the Lord are much more mature spiritually than those who are living after the flesh. You find a believer that's living after the flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh, fulfilling the desires of the mind. They make immature decisions. They make immature moves that the world around them go, what are you thinking? But you give me a young person and give me a college student and give a single couple, a young couple that just simply, single couple, there is no such thing. Give a young couple. Celeste, I saw you going, single couple, how can that ever be, right? And so instead of it getting down to Bobby Summerford and him going, what'd you say? And let me tell you something. And all of a sudden, there is a maturity that comes with a person that simply says, I'm going to please the Lord. Because now everything that happens in pleasing the Lord, the good, the bad, whatever happens in pleasing the Lord, it makes you more mature. You can see it in teenagers all over the place. The ones who are just like, hey man, hey bro, hey dude, hey come on. You know, they're just like, whatever, I'm offended. Oh, I just cannot believe they did that. Oh, they're not handling life. You want to know why? Because they're not pleasing the Lord. They're pleasing their flesh. But those who please the Lord, when trials come their way and problems come their way, they simply handle them like a veteran. And aren't we amazed at the young people that go through junk? and they're stable. How do they do that? Because they simply started out to realize I was not created to fulfill my desires. I was created to please Him. And because I'm going to please Him, it will mature me. I was standing in the back, and one of our teenage young men, Wednesday night, came, and just as like he was married with grown children and grandchildren, he looked at me and stuck his hand out, and he said, "Pastor," and I said, "Yeah, I was expecting a dumb joke. I was expecting this dad joke, you know." And he loves to joke, but he looked at me and he said, "Pastor, I want you to know that I love you, and I have spent every day praying for you and Miss Kelly. And Pastor, we'll see him again. We're sure going to miss him, but we'll see him again." I am not shocked by that came out of his mouth, because I have heard him 100 times, it seems like, since he's been in 7th grade. "Pastor, I just want to please the Lord. Pastor, I just want God to be pleased with me. Pastor, I want to live my life to please the Lord." And these are the stepping stones. And as you please the Lord and life starts coming at you, guess what it does? It matures you. And the reason we have immature couples who get married and make immature, dumb decisions is because they didn't chart their course by pleasing the Lord. They charted their course by what pleased them. There is no pressure. Just please the Lord. And then the next step, you just please the Lord. And even if you've gotten off 10 steps and you're sitting here today going, "I have so missed the train," you've not missed any train. Because God has a way of getting you back to where you need to be if you just please the Lord. It will mature you. Would you please look at it? It now becomes what is that perfect. It matures you. And in pleasing the Lord, look at it, backing up from the end of verse number 2, acceptable. Can I tell you that now this word acceptable simply means that what God wanted and what pleases the Lord is now fully agreeable to you. I now am accepting this in my life. You see, I had no idea that in pleasing the Lord there would be so much drama. Come on now. I didn't realize in pleasing the Lord it would cost you friends. I didn't realize in pleasing the Lord you wouldn't be popular. And in pleasing the Lord you would be an oddball. And in pleasing the Lord you couldn't do some things, and you couldn't go some places, and you don't have some knowledge, and I don't know what that word means, and I don't know what that movie is, and I'm a pilgrim? Can I use a little verbiage from the book? I'm a stranger. I'm out of my world. I'm out of my element. I'm a foreigner. Let me tell you something. All we have to do is please the Lord. Just please the Lord. And in pleasing the Lord, you're going to find out that at some point, whatever walks through that door in pleasing the Lord, whatever situation you've been put in, that you reach up and you now accept it. I wish I could tell some stories in this room. I'm going to tell one. I'm going to go very broad and very general. I watched a dear couple go through an amazing thing that was like a carousel. It was like something that they just went round and round, and about the time that we saw hope, about the time we saw light at the end of that tunnel, like my mama said, it was just a freight train that took us off the track. Weep and we'd cry, and then we'd get back up, and all of a sudden there was hope. But it was not until that dear couple reached up and looked at the situation and said, "We now are going to agree with God that this is what He wants for our life." That God took that situation and turned around. What did it say about Job? When he prayed for his, what please? friends. You know what it said about Job? When he looked at the very people that he once said were miserable comforters, and then he said, I'm going to pray for those people that are making my life terrible. Then God turned. And there are some of you that think that pleasing the Lord has brought you to a place, and is it really worth it? Oh, my friend, if in pleasing the Lord and that decision to please the Lord has put you on the outs with people and has put you on the outs with being popular and it's not really getting you anywhere, do not back up on pleasing the Lord. Reach up and say, whatever result is a result of pleasing the Lord, I'm just going to reach up and I'm going to embrace. Because here's what a lot of times happens in believers' lives when you please the Lord and then a difficulty comes. We think that the difficulty makes us think that we made the wrong decision. Do not base your next move on the circumstance. Base your next move on, did my last move please the Lord? The only thing I have to ask myself, the only thing I have to know, and this is my Christianity, the only thing I have to know is when I step out here and all of a sudden I face it, I do not look there. Give me a hug. Because the only thing I want to know is this: did that last move please the Lord? Because if that pleased the Lord, whatever is coming my way that I face on the path of pleasing the Lord, I'm going to reach up and give it a great big hug and kiss it on the forehead and rub my nose in the hair and pick it up and twirl it all the way around. And then I'm going to sit it down. You know the best way to get a smart-mouth kid, mamas? Go to say, give mama a kiss. Come here. Come on, give mama a kiss. My mom, when I would get just a little, she'd go, I know what's missing in your life, Bobby. You just need mama to give you a kiss. And I never understood why she went to the bathroom and put the lipstick on before she came back out. There's nothing worse than a 40-year-old pair of lips coming at you. Amen. How was that for old time? And so, acceptable. You see, the reason that we're second-guessing what is coming into our life is because our last step, we don't know, am I here because I made the wrong decision, or am I here? I don't know how to interpret you. I do. How many know the difference between God judging you? Right? How many know that you step out and you made a decision that didn't go well? Like I knew. And whatever happened, you knew. That's because I was an idiot. Right? And then how many know that I'm just going to please the Lord, and then when this comes my way, listen to me, renew your mind. Settle it and prove it once and for all. Write it down. I am going to please the Lord. And then just in pleasing the Lord, whatever it is will perfect me. Whatever it is acceptable to me, and I will agree. I'll talk about RG less and less and less, but if you'll just give me this moment, part of my grieving, I think. The day when we found out that RG was full of issues, and his pediatrician came to the viewing, and Dr. Hunter, and she was tasked, and I didn't know this until she told us at the viewing, but she was not even the primary doctor that was involved with RG. They were passing in the hallway, I guess, and my story, if I'm remembering this right, basically this doctor called Carla, Dr. Hunter, and said, you got to go see this family. And she was tasked with the unfortunate of coming in, pulling out that list. And as she was pulling out the list, I come walking through the door because I knew I need to get to the hospital. Back before cell phones, we still had the Holy Spirit that said, get to that hospital. And I can remember thinking to myself, there for just a little bit, but all we've tried to do is please the Lord. That's it. All I've wanted to do is please the Lord. And Kelly, where I had missteps, you have always been somebody that just wanted to please the Lord. That's all you've wanted to do. And I thought to myself, I'm not hugging this one. I'm not embracing this one. And you can forget this. And there for a little bit, I was not a good husband and I was not a good father because I was going through the list. And of those beginning pictures, his forehead stuck out, and within just, it seemed like months, he became this freak of nature. And I was embarrassed. I was like, God, I'm not doing this. But then I had to realize, Bob, you're just pleasing the Lord. You're not perfect at it, but you just want to please the Lord. The greatest day of my life is when I reached up and hugged the situation that I thought God was doing me wrong. There are many of you in this auditorium that are listening to me right now that you're facing something and you can chart your life and just simply say, I've always just wanted to please the Lord. I don't know why this is happening. Let me tell you something. Reach up and for the first time accept it. Hug it. Pick it up. Twirl it around. I remember the first time I got stinking mad at somebody who made fun of RG. And we were in the store, and this is when I knew I crossed that bridge. We were in the store, and this little 5-6-year-old RG, we had him and we would put him in the buggy, and we'd push him around, and I had accepted RG at this point, but this kid little kid 5 or 6 looked up and said, "Monkey, monkey, monkey," and I remember going, "Oh, listen to me, you little brat. I will stuff you in the pickle aisle, and they'll never," and I can remember me, I'm going to go where's your mama, your grandmother, your whole heritage, your whole lineage? I'll take you all on. And the rage started up that way. And now, we don't even think twice when RG was on this earth, and we would walk, and he would put his hand on his mama's shoulder, and we'd walk through the airport. It didn't bother me at all. And if people wanted to make fun of him, I've killed more people than you, and I've done it. But I had to reach up and accept. Did I just admit to mass murder? I had to reach up and accept. Cut that thing out of the hand. And I had to reach up and accept. Let me tell you something. Please the Lord. And in pleasing the Lord, whatever that next step is in pleasing the Lord, it's going to mature you. And whatever that next step is in pleasing the Lord, it one day will be acceptable to you as long as you know I don't have to prove anything except did that step please the Lord. And then the next thing, and the last, and we'll end, perfect, acceptable, and then good. Good? The word good means it has benefited me. Everything you go through won't add to your bank account. It won't add to your resume, but it's going to be good for you. You may not think so, but it's going to be good for you. Just please the Lord. The will of God is not geographical. The will of God is behavioral. And I don't know how I would have made it through the past week if I didn't chart my course by the simplicity and just the common, simple thought of this. Please the Lord. And there have been days to where I walked in seasons of my own mind, my own flesh, and when I've gotten a little bit off the beaten path, the Holy Spirit's gone, Bob, that doesn't please me. And then I've had to stop, and I've had to, okay, Lord, I'm going to please you. Can I ask you a question? Are you pleasing the Lord? Is the Lord pleased with you right now? Don't worry about anything past. Don't worry about anything in the rearview mirror. We're going to end, and Brother John, Miss Amy, if you'll come, we're going to end with this. The only question you have to ask is, are you pleasing the Lord? And if there is an area in your life that you know, I'm not pleasing the Lord in this area, life's still going to come your way, but here will be the difference. If you're pleasing the flesh and the mind, and please listen to this closing statement, if you're pleasing the flesh and the mind, the heart, it says in Jeremiah, is deceitfully wicked. Who can know it? 1 John tells us that the heart can condemn you. If you're living after the flesh and the mind, think about the irony of it. The flesh and the mind will trick you into And then as soon as you step across that line, it flips on you, and then it starts condemning you. And there are people who live in this cycle of trickery, condemnation, and then when life comes, it's like going through the car wash with your windows down. Why is all this happening to me? No. Just please the Lord. And when things start happening, don't look at the circumstance. You look at the fact, if me pleasing the Lord brings me glory, or if me pleasing the Lord brings me gory. If pleasing the Lord makes me popular, or pleasing the Lord makes me lose my head like John the Baptist, I'm just going to please the Lord. Because at the end of this journey, there's only one commendation that means anything, and that's the Lord. When he says, well done.